Okay. So this is Torchlight 2. I'm going to talk about very, very basics of just starting the game, how it works, what things to watch for, how to set up your character in terms of strengths and weaknesses, that sort of thing. So I'm going to skip the setting up character part. It's pretty self-explanatory. I think there's 4 different characters you can pick from. I chose the engineer, and his name is Dictits. So basically throughout the game you pick up loot, and I think probably one of the most important things is to try to decide on what weaponry you want to use in the game. So usually for a lot of other games, I tend to like a two-handed axe or something like that. But what I found in this game was you take a lot of damage up close, and if you're using a melee weapon like that, then you just end up spamming through health potions like crazy, especially at the beginning of the game. So what I ended up choosing actually was one of these cannons. So I've got Archer prototype, is it Saker? Okay, so it's a rare cannon. Of course you can see here I've got Ice Ember Shard and a Flame Ember. Those are actually here at the bottom, and you'll collect those through the game. So they're kind of like gems that you would just add to your weapon to make it stronger. Not all weapons are going to have slots in them for you to be able to do that, so that's something to consider when you're picking up your loot. So with this weapon, what I like about it, if I can find an enemy. I've finished the game already, so it's going to be pretty sparse to try to find somebody around here, but they're pretty much all dead. But anyway, I have my main weapon, which can fire just a normal shot, and it uses no mana. Now your mana is down here in the bottom right, so that gets used up if you want to use anything that has to do with magic or some kind of a special ability. So what I can show without finding an enemy is my special ability shot, which is, if you go to here for your skills, this is the part where you really want to be careful too with this game in particular. When you start leveling up, you really want to make sure that you strongly consider where you're putting your skill points, because you will get a fair amount in the beginning, but if you put them in the wrong category, you can't what's called respec. So you can't basically just easily change them to something else. You can, in town, find somebody to help you respec, but you can only do it back 3 of your last choices. So let's say if I had chosen seismic slam and heavy lifting, and I put 2 in heavy lifting, I'd only be able to respec 1 out of seismic slam and 2 out of heavy lifting. I wouldn't be able to touch anything else. There is something for PC online where you can actually get a potion and respec everything, but at the same time, just to have an easier or a better playthrough experience, it's better to take into consideration a little bit stronger what you're going to put your skill points into. So the one I'm going to show here is actually my blast cannon, and what I like about this is I can fire this at enemies from a distance and keep my distance. Now some of them will throw projectiles, but if you can get out of the way, then you're not going to take any damage. So there's my blast cannon. And of course, as you go through the game, you can level it up. So I'm at level 49 right now. So when I get to 52, then I'll be able to apply more points to that as well. My healing bot I really like, which is this guy, and he just follows me around, and it uses mana to create him, but I find him very useful for the game because he restores a lot of my health. And then what else do I have here? I've got the sledge bot, which is basically a robot that he just fights for me when I create him. So these guys all follow me around, including my pet, which is something that you choose at the beginning of the game. And then these ones I really like because some of these, like, I have to actually press a button to create the healing bot, but once I've done it once, it's done. He just follows me around until I switch a level, and then I have to recreate him. The same thing goes for the sledge bot unless he dies. But some of these, like the gun bot and the spider mines, again, you have to keep creating them. So what I like about the bulwark and fire and spark, as you can see here, it says they're always enabled. So I don't even have to think about them, they're just always going to be there. And I can just keep leveling them up, and it basically means that it adds more physical armor to me. And then the fire and spark will increase my fire and electric damage. And I also have this one as well, which is also enabled. So again, not something else you don't really have to think about. I initially had Flame Hammer. I had quite a few points in that because I was actually using an axe. But as you can see here in red, it says requires an axe, sword, hammer, staff, or polearm. So if you're not really using that, then it's a complete waste to have any skill points in that category. And then as far as moving around, you can just use your mouse. I would also, of course, when there's no enemies around, just take into consideration when you're picking up items. I wouldn't necessarily just pick up everything in terms of loot, so pay attention to what you think you'd actually benefit from. Of course, you can pick up everything if you want, and one of the things you can do, your pet actually has its own equipment area. So let's say, for example, if you were full and you had a bunch of stuff that you didn't even want, you can actually just move that over. So I can shift click and transfer it over to him. And then if I click on the home button, it sends him to town, and then he automatically will sell all of these items, and then that adds to my gold. The other handy thing with him is you can create a shopping list. So if I needed more health potions or a waypoint scroll or more mana, then I could just add this, and then it would automatically come out of my gold. So that's a very useful thing. The pet also has a tag, a collar, and then another tag. So you can pick these up through the game and give these to your pet, which will add strength to your pet as well. Your pet also has a few different categories that you can pick from here. So if you want him to be really aggressive, you can leave it there, or passive, or defensive. So you can change that to your liking. Seismic Slam. So that's what I was showing over here. So I have it at level 8 right now. It does use up mana. So what it looks like, basically what this is really good for is if I'm being swarmed by a whole bunch of enemies and they're all in close range, then I can do that, and it causes damage to as many of them as possible. Some of them it'll probably kill depending on what level they're at, and some of them it can just help cause damage. So it can give you a little bit of a a reprieve to be able to escape from some of the higher level enemies as well. Sometimes it can stun them. And then you've got your quests here, which you can also just press Q, which lists all of your different quests. You can check them or uncheck them, which you can see it'll take it off being tracked. And then you've got your map here, which is, you can change that. If you hit M, then you can see a different area. If you don't want it at all, you just keep pressing M until it goes away. I usually like to have mine up there as just so I can see kind of where I'm going. And these areas here, these are different levels, and that's a waypoint that either it's there or I've constructed it. The other thing too that's really handy is, let's say that you're going into a level and it has multiple like stairs that you might go up and down, and then you think, well, if I get killed, I got to start all over again. When that happens, you do get the choice between starting in town, or you can start exactly where you are, or you can start at the beginning of the level that you're at. Keeping in mind, though, that if you start back in town, it costs you no gold whatsoever. If you want to start exactly where you are, that's going to cost you a fairly decent amount of gold. So one of the things to try to make sure that you do is, if you use your waypoint portal scroll, you can actually create one pretty much wherever you want. There are some exceptions. Sometimes if you're, on a level where there's going to be a big boss fight, the narrator will say, you can't do that here. So those are the exceptions, but for the most part, you can create them almost anywhere you want to. When you do that, it'll give you a bunch of choices depending on how many places you've been recently, and then you can just work right back to whichever location you choose. When you go back to one of these camps, so you're going to have, here's a blacksmith.
How may I help you?
So you can actually purchase weapons. You can purchase different types of supplies. You can actually buy items back if you change your mind. So you can enchant your items as well, which I find it's a little bit risky because you kind of don't really know how much value you'll get out of it. But you could take one of your items, for example, I can take this and put it here. Well, there's no enchantments on it, but I can click here to enchant it. It's going to cost me 2,500 gold coins almost, and then it'll tell me what it actually does to enchant it after. So I did that once in the game. It was okay. I think if you have a lot of gold and you're just curious, it's okay to do it, but I wouldn't be doing it to a whole bunch of items frequently, because you sometimes, especially at the beginning of the game, because you might actually change your weapons.
Hello there.
And then, so here's a regular merchant, and this is where, like, if you were to send your pet back to town, or you could do this yourself, this is where you're going to buy things like your potions. And you could actually sell, like, anything that was in the pet inventory here. I could just click sell all, and it would sell anything that I had put in there. And then, of course, you're going to add to your gold count. And then you've got this merchant, which you can actually purchase more specialized items. So spells, like a necklace. I have bought a couple things. I think I bought a necklace. Maybe. But overall, I find it pretty easy to go from level to level, because you'll get quests, and then on the screen it'll actually show you, different areas that you can go to. And the story's pretty decent. It's not completely compelling or anything, but it's a decent story for an ARPG, I find. So getting into a level, you basically just click on it and then you're transferred over. You can tell if something's already been explored by looking at your map. So you can see my map in the top right. This is a fairly small area, but you can see that it's fully explored. If it wasn't, then you would see blank areas to explore. And then in terms of setting up your options at the bottom, really it's personal preference. I like to have my health potion available, and then there's my seismic slam, and then my blast cannon is actually my right click. So when I'm playing, I just alternate between 1 and 3 for my potions, and then I know that 2 is my seismic slam. So there's my robot, sledge bot, my healing bot, and then I can right click here to create a waypoint. And then these are spells. So for example, there's my fireball, and then I can summon archers as well. So there's the archers. So they're not too powerful because they only last about 30 seconds, so my level for them is only level 3, so they're not useless, but they're not super powerful, so yeah, and then they just disappear, so. But that'll cover most of the basics here as well. When you do level up, besides getting skill points, you're also going to get stat points here. So it'll describe each one of these in detail in terms of what you can do with them and why you might want something to increase the level. And specific weapons will have requirements for what types of stat points you need. So for example, the Great Staff requires level 35 overall, and I'm at 49. Or it requires a focus of 64. So my focus right now is 70, so I could actually enable this weapon, equip it. These ones that have the red X, it means that I'm not ready to use them yet, like my levels aren't high enough. So sometimes I'll keep them and then wait until my level's high enough, and then I can start to use them. So it'll tell you in red why you're not able to use those specific items yet. And then here just shows you different stats for the overall game. So those are pretty much the basics. I found it a pretty enjoyable game. It took me probably about 24 hours to complete it, keeping in mind that I just recently finished Grim Dawn, so I was fairly used to how ARPGs worked, and kind of was focused in on that. You can also zoom in and out on your character, so I just use my scroll wheel and my mouse. So depending on how you like to play, if you like something more close up, do it that way or further away. So yeah, so those are pretty much the basics. Overall, I really enjoyed the game. I thought it was very well done. Very different than something like a Grim Dawn. Grim Dawn is a lot more dark. It was a longer game for me as well. Plus, it has a couple fairly sizable DLCs. So I've put in well over 100 hours into Grim Dawn. And this one's 20, like I said, about 24 hours or so. I would say this one did a little bit better job on the storytelling. Like it would do cutscenes and especially before boss fights and things like that. So it helped to tell the story a little bit better. So I'm not saying it's better than Grim Dawn, but that was one aspect that I enjoyed more. So if you like these types of games, I definitely recommend it. And hopefully those basics can get you started. To explore a bit more and see if I can find anybody else or anything left in the game for me to do other than the robot parts. I'll have to figure that one out. But anyway, yeah, give it a shot and see if you like it. Hopefully those beginner tips help out.